not cleaning. I slipped up, fell a little bit, but I'm all right though. I ain't telling as many lies, I ain't cussing as much. I ain't slapped nobody in 6 days. Jesus, I'm doing a little bit better than what I was last week. Today's the 7th day. I've completed. I ain't laid my hands on nobody. Y'all know what I mean. And so what we come to is, ultimately, when Jesus teaches us how to live in this world, but not of this world, he gives us principles every time, and he tells parables. When he comes in contact with people, he gives them principles. And I want to pull up one in John chapter 4. Here's a principle I want to give you today. He says, when this woman who's at the well, she got a lot of men, she's a giver of gifts. You can say she's friendly. Wow. She's an evangelist. You gotta go back and read John 4. You find this woman who had a lot of men, to say the least. But Jesus gives her a principle I think is worthy to repeat today. He says the time is coming and the time is now when the Father is looking for true worshipers. Those that worship in what? Spirit and in truth. In other words, he's saying, what you've known up until this point, I'm going to break the barriers off what it means to know who the Father is. I'm going to break the barriers off of what it looks like to follow the Father. He says, whoever worships me must worship in what? Spirit and truth. Which means there's a divine connection and there's a discipline that says I honor him in every area of my life. See, understand, true worshipers are those who made it in the historical stories of Jesus. True worshipers, they're not 80%ers. Y'all know what I'm talking about? Not really. 80%ers, they're going to give Jesus 80% and think they get it. No, true worshipers are those that live at 100% max, looking for another 10% so they can go 110. True worshipers have a different desire. Yeah. True worshipers say, look, I'm going to honor God with my health and my wealth. I'm going to honor God with my time, my talent, and my treasures. True worshiper says, every area of my life, if you follow me home, you'll still be able to see Jesus' impact in my life. Hallelujah. See, this is what we're talking about. The time is coming and the time is now. I believe this prophecy is happening right now. Because we got a lot of worshipers. Yeah, we got a lot of worshipers. You ever been to a concert, especially like hip-hop concerts, raise your hands in the air, waving like you just don't care. If you notice, they always put us in a posture of reverence. It's always worshipers. The question is, what are you worshiping? We worship God with our time, or we worship other things with our time. We worship God with our bodies, or either we worship something else with our bodies. Am I making any sense? Worship means I'm going to submit to it. I'm going to follow in it. Worship means that now I'm going to lay myself down to it. And now we can pause right there. That's a whole other sermon. But just think about it. The idea that true worshipers, he's calling us forth now. He's saying, look, I want to see you worship in every area of your life. Somebody say, I'm a worshiper. I'm a worshiper. And so when we look at this idea, the reason why Jesus says the time is coming and the time is now, I'm looking for true worshipers, he's basically trying to distinguish and answer this question. Because here's the question that the world lives in, whether we know it or not. The world asks the same question that Nas asked. Whose world is this? You don't believe me? Think about it. The world is a battlefield. And what it's battling over is battling over territory and souls. When you think about it, everything that God asked for, the world asked for. God says we're transformed by the renewing of our minds, but we're constantly pumped with messages that's contrary to the will, word, and worship of God. God asked for our bodies, and we constantly see our bodies are now objects of lust, objects of fantasy, instead of objects of displaying God's image. Everything that God asked for, the world asked for it too. And so when we come to this, these ideas, when we talk about a concept such as giving is foreign to us because we live in a world that takes. Yeah. God asks for our lives. Satan says, but I come to steal, kill, and destroy. In other words, we see this tension. We see that we're in the midst of the war. And in other words, I don't know how many of y'all are old hip-hop fans, but Mobb Deep said there's a war going on outside. No man is safe from. You can run, but you can't hide. In other words, what I'm saying is that there is so much war going on, that there's war going on around us and war going on inside of us, and there's something always asking for us. Yeah. You don't believe me? Let's look at it. When Peter confessed that Jesus is Lord, what did Jesus say back to us? He said, look, all right, let me tell you something, homie. I know you said I'm Lord, but let me tell you something. I want you to know this. Yeah. Satan has asked for you. What? Come on, man. Look, AJ can ask for me. Marcus can beef with me. Satan asked for me, though. That's a little different. Y'all know what I'm saying? But here's the thing. We see that it shows the whole thing that there's a tension that he wants something from us. Now, when we talk about this idea and this question, whose world is this? We find that the Pharisees, they constantly came with Jesus. They constantly came to Jesus with these questions, trying to trick him up. They said, look, you say you're the Son of God. You say that you're living in a divine way. But what about these laws of Moses? What about the laws of the land? How can you abide by God's way and this way too? And so, in other words, it's like, all right, who's in control here? Who do we answer to? What rules do we live by? And I know I hope I'm not talking over your head, but check this out. You ever been in a place where it's not welcoming for your faith, and you got to answer this question, do I say in Jesus' name or not? You got to answer this question, do I stop and I pray or do I not? Because other people are not welcoming to the true and living God. And so when we come to the true and living God, we caught in the battle. Am I going to represent him or am I not? When all my friends are saying, let's go here, do this, and that's contrary to the will, word, and worship of God, you're caught in that question. Whose word is this? Am I going to give it to this? Am I going to give it to that? You want to give it this? You want to give it that? You want to give it this? You want to give it that? And so, man, I went through the whole engine number 9. I had to get it out. All right. And so, the curse of hip-hop. I'm joking. And so, what question are we asking? Whose word is what? Yes. Come on, y'all guys, you know whose word is what? Yes. And so when we look at this question, the Pharisees and the Herodians who are normally beefing, the Herodians are in the text, the Herodians are essentially, they are representatives of the Roman government. And so, they represent the Roman law. The Pharisees are representatives of the Mosaic law, of the Old Testament. And so, because the Jews, the Hebrews, or whatever you want to call them, the people that follow the Mosaic law, the Jews, they really didn't get along with the Romans because the Romans made them do stuff they didn't want to do. That's right. Everybody say battle. Battle. So there's already a battle, okay? And so, now, how did God's people end up under Roman government? Well, when you look in the Old Testament, you see they were constantly saying, forsake God and be idolaters. And so God has to constantly allow his wrath to come through other people. And so now here it is, the Jewish people are subject to a people that they're not really supposed to be subject to. And so now it's hard for them to follow the Mosaic law under the Roman law. And so now there's tension. So the Herodians are the ones who will come and say, hey, you Jews, listen, I know y'all Jews and I know y'all got this Mosaic law, but y'all better follow Caesar's law first, because if not, off with your head. Y'all got it? Okay. So normally they beef. Normally they don't like each other. But now they have a common enemy. The common enemy is the Sunday school answer we all love. Jesus. The common enemy is now Jesus, because you see all throughout the Gospels, the people that followed Jesus more than the people that needed Jesus were the Pharisees. Everywhere Jesus was preaching, they was there. Everywhere he was, every step he took. They were there. And so, y'all wrong. Thank you. And so, everywhere where Jesus was, who was there? Pharisees. They didn't like Jesus. But everywhere he was, who was there? Pharisees. All right, now so the Herodians are saying, hey, look, man, this guy getting a large crowd. And because he's getting a large crowd, now Caesar, he all about pride. He's like, hey, let's check in on this cat right here. So the Pharisees, they said, look, I don't like him. Y'all don't like him. Let's see if we can trick him. So they came representatives of both sides. And here's where we find ourselves in the text. They said, look, what do we do with our money, Jesus? This is the question. What do we do with our money? So the Pharisee says, look, am I supposed to pay this Roman tax or not? The Herodians say, everybody got to pay it. Jesus, what do you say? Whose word is this? Whose law, whose rules do we abide by? Now, in order for us to understand how we live in this world but not of this world, we got to recognize a couple things. One, we have to recognize the divine reputation. Everybody say reputation. Let's keep on going in the text. And in the text it says in verse 15, it says, in Matthew 22, verse 15, it says, then the Pharisees went and plotted how they might entangle him and his talk. And they sent to him disciples with the Herodians saying, teacher, we know